I want to demonstrate how is it possible to generate Let's Encrypt certificates via Cert-Manager on K3s. That's something that really annoyed me. I have a custom domain that I wanted to use for this purpose, and um, just want to show how it's done. So I installed Q3s, set it up so it's gonna work remotely on my local network using this option to set the external IP. Started K3s, and then via this command, like basically just deployed Cert-Manager on using Helm on its own namespace. Um, but the real fun begins with setting up the Cloudflare DNS challenge. So that's what I had to do. So I had to create a cluster issuer. And for the most part, the documentation is updated by the Cert-Manager. So we can follow just this the API tokens generation with the permissions we need. Um, so that's what it looks like. In the secret, we just set up the secret on the Cert-Manager namespace. The cluster issuer just sets uh, refers to the secret itself. And then we need to set up the email we want to use and the API token we just generated. The Acme server is pointing to the production server so we can actually generate it on the fly. And then the second, so basically, once we generate those two resources, uh, we can use those certificate cluster issuer basically to generate any certificates we want. So the fun begins is where we have a very simple application here, like an Echo HTTP Echo server. And currently I set it to just say hi done. We have a deployment service and the ingress. So the ingress is going to use traffic, the default K3s, and then via the host, the simple rule we're going to use is just this host name. So I can set hi as a subdomain .k3s dot the full domain. So in order to do that, I had to go to the DNS mask and add the rule that I want with a wildcard to point to the cluster, to the master cluster node. So basically, it allows me to generate any subdomains of this, of K3s, and it should start up the application and generate certificate accordingly. So it doesn't create a wildcard certificate, although it's possible. Um, all right, so let's try to see what happens. So what I expect to happen is that the the ingress is going to look into traffic, and let's encrypt to generate the certificate once we apply this config. So let me go into the demo folder. All right, so we can look at the pods. It's a really tiny application, so it should be pretty straightforward for it to run. The other component we need to wait for to start is the actual SSL cert, so we can get certificate. Last time I tried it, it took about 60 seconds, but we'll see. I hope I'm not gonna hit any limits on the free account or fail Let's Encrypt, but shouldn't be the case. So what happens behind the scene is that Kubernetes or the cluster issuer is actually uh, generate a certificate. So we can see it under certificate request, and Actually, we can track that first. So the certificate request is first generated, sent to Let's Encrypt, and Let's Encrypt uses the API token to make sure that I am the actual owner of that DNS or this domain. And then once this confirmed, it responds with the certificate and sends it back to the requester. And this is what we can see now, that the request has completed successfully. So let's look at the certificate. It's also true. So now we should be able to browse to this URL. So this is the insecure. I opened HTTP as well, but there you go. I have a valid certificate signed by Let's Encrypt. And that's just the subdomain. Now, if I wanted to expose it, I had to um, port forward my Kubernetes cluster, which I don't want at the moment, but that just proves that this part works properly. So if I wanted, I should be able to say to enter in the domain hi2 and apply that. And that's going to go through the same process of certificate request. That makes it super easy. It's not as bad as I thought, but it's also a little bit like confusing at first. So just to set it up is a little bit annoying. Just want to see that. So I don't really use the load balancing of traffic at the moment. It's really just the router passes all the traffic straight to that server. Okay. All right, let's try high 2. Works. Cool. All right, that's it.